Surprise! I wonder who can tell that this video was not planned. You guys, I'm almost 32 weeks pregnant. I am tired. I am hot. I was not planning on filming anything at all, but I was just taking a look at my rehabby shelf here. And there were a few things I pulled for a repot because I can just tell they're not loving life. And so I figured I would go ahead and just super casually talk you through what I do when my anthurium are not looking good. So we've just got 2 plants to address today, unless I find something else. My kids are upstairs playing, and hopefully they will stay occupied for a little while so that I can get this done. I am gonna go ahead and mix up some fresh substrate, because one of the things I wanted to say was it always comes back to the roots. And this is not just an anthurium solution. Any plant, literally. This is one of the foundational things you'll need to know when you're caring for any kind of plant, indoor, outdoor, tropical or otherwise, expensive or otherwise. If you're having a problem with your plant, you need to probably check the roots. Now, there are a few instances where maybe you don't go straight in for a repot. If you check your plant, it's not looking good, you take a closer look and you see visible pests, you don't have to assume that the roots were the problem. The pests were probably the problem. I would, however, recommend a repot in that situation because most pests live in your substrate or lay eggs in your substrate. So a fresh repot will never hurt. One thing I do love about growing in clear cups is that I usually can see the roots at any time. There has been some experimental study done by others in the anthurium community who have found that using dark colored and opaque pots are better for root development, and they are probably right. I choose to grow in transparent because I need to see what's going on. I still would consider myself, honestly, somewhat of a beginner. I've only been doing this for about 5 years, and ever since the beginning, if I did not grow something in a transparent pot so that I could see the roots at all times, I killed that plant. And so I've just kept with the transparent cups. A lot of people like it. And so these 2 plants that we're looking at today, now that I've kind of mixed this up and evenly distributed the moisture, this, by the way, is just sphagnum moss and perlite with no specific ratio. Other people could probably give you a way better recipe for anthurium substrate, but this is what I use because I'm pretty lazy. I used to just grow in leca, which was the easiest version of substrate. So this is the version of me not doing hydroponics that I am still okay with. So we've got perlite and sphagnum moss. The 2 plants we're going to be looking at today, I've already shown you. This one is Anthurium Delta Force. And you can tell that we've got some tragic looking leaves here. What I will tell you is that about a month and a half ago, I caught root rot on this plant. I had to remove a lot of dead root. It was more or less a top at that point with no root. And since doing that, it's been working on a new leaf. However, here's my problem, and I'm gonna hold this up so that you can see too. I still can't see any healthy new root. What's that? Is that a root right there? There's one. Maybe a few at the bottom. But because of the algae growth in this substrate, I can't really see what's going on in the cup. And that makes me a little uncomfortable. So these 2 leaves, just for instructional purposes, this is a great example of a problem I noticed and that I tried to catch. And I think I did catch it in time. I resolved the root rot issue by removing the dead root and repotting in fresh substrate. And the plant has rewarded me by giving me this new leaf, but I don't think that she's as happy as she can be. So we're gonna do another repot, another round of fresh substrate, and I'm gonna check on the status of the roots in here. So I've got my little empty tray, and honestly guys, like I said, I'm just gonna super casually talk you through what I'm doing today. Unprompted and unscripted video. This is just me at home on a Wednesday night, dealing with some plants that are less than thriving. All right, we've got her completely removed, and I wouldn't say that I'm thrilled by the progress I see here. The longer root that I saw from the outside of the cup, it's not new growth at all. This must have been one of the old ones that wasn't fully rotted, because the tip here is soft, stringy. We've got dead root up to about here. We have this other root, same story. Must have been on the plant when I dealt with the rot issue. Thankfully, the rot hasn't spread, but there is some root death here at the bottom of this root. This root here, which may on the surface look all right, is actually completely dead. Completely dead. Look at that. And so the only new root growth I have is, as suspected, coming out from the base of the newest leaf. That is this root right here. With Anthurium, when you get a new leaf, you'll get new roots coming out from there. So that's always a good sign. If you are watching a plant that's recently experienced rot, and you see it growing a new leaf, you can take a sigh of relief for several reasons. One, the plant isn't giving up, you're getting a new leaf, and two, that leaf is gonna bring with it new roots. Sometimes the leaf comes first, the root comes a little after, but here we've got a pretty little new root there. So I'm just going to go grab my shears, which I left in the other room. We're gonna remove the tips of these roots that are dead, and then I'm going to be repotting into something quite a bit smaller. I think that one of the issues with this Delta Force is that the substrate was too wet and not allowed to dry out sufficiently. And please don't take anything I say as gospel when it comes to Anthurium care, because there are so many growers who are way more knowledgeable than I, and I understand that Anthurium do not like to stay wet. That's like, anybody will tell you that. Anthurium do not like to stay wet. But like I said a minute ago, I started my plant hobby in LECA, semi-hydroponics. All of my plants stayed pretty wet pretty much all the time, and I even have some still growing and thriving in LECA, some of my mother plants which were just too root bound to transition to something else. So I think to some extent Anthurium can handle a higher level of moisture, but they do appreciate the chance to dry out a little bit. I wouldn't say they want to dry out completely, but to not stay soaking wet all the time would probably be their ideal. And I think that because this cup was a little bit too large for this root system right here, the roots were not able to absorb the moisture I was providing fast enough. And so the substrate was staying too wet. So repotting into a smaller cup or pot is a great way to deal with unhappy roots in most cases. Okay, got the shears and grabbed one more plant that I think we can give a little bit of TLC today. I'm gonna go ahead and, like I just described, I'm gonna snip off any dead root from the root tips here of these older ones. They're still viable because we have firm root going the rest of the way up, but just by eliminating that dead part, I don't know if it really benefits the root system. I don't really know if it prevents that death from spreading, but it's just the thing to do. And now, as ugly as they are, I will not be removing these leaves. And I've explained this before. Somebody may come at me saying that I'm wrong, but let the plant take whatever it needs to take from these leaves. They are obviously dying. They will not recover. They're in the process of yellowing and drying up because whatever nutrients were stored in these leaves are now being pulled back up from starting at the tip all the way up until the leaf is completely yellow, and then it falls off naturally. That's a process that happens when a plant is trying to recover from something, because you can see it doesn't really have the root system it probably needs. And so instead of uptaking nutrients from the root system, it's gonna take it from itself. It's sad. It's always sad to lose leaves, but the plant has like a built-in emergency response. And so I'll just leave these really sad ones, and I'll be switching the plant from this cup to this one. They're actually very, very close in size diameter wise, but obviously this is a shorter cup, so there will be less substrate to take up extra moisture. So hopefully she'll do a little bit better in this setup. I'll try to keep a better eye on her where it comes to watering, not overdoing it, not letting her sit in water for too long. But I have a positive outlook, seeing that she was already giving me a new leaf with a new root. All right, the next plant in urgent care tonight is Anthurium Kuna yalenci by Carla Blackier. I know I've talked about this probably once during my 2024 plant tour. It was not much smaller than this. She has not put on a lot of size at all. I have struggled to make this plant happy. She'll give me a new leaf every so often, and she's actually working on one now, but the older leaves just look sickly. And when I take a look in the cup, here's going back to our premise for today, it always goes back to the roots. I can't see what's happening here because my substrate is so dark green with algae. This is a problem of growing in transparent cups. You will have algae growth. Algae does not harm your plant. It does not benefit your plant. The only annoying part about algae growth is that eventually you cannot see what's going on. So I'm not sure what to expect here. Now, before you come at me for doing a repot while it's making a new leaf, because I know we generally don't do that, but this new leaf has been trying to work its way out for quite a while, and I'm at the point now where I'm worried she's stalled, and that's what's indicated to me to check the roots. I am going to be very gentle, but I suspect I'm going to find problems when I unpot, and they might explain why this new leaf has kind of frozen in time and not completed unfurling. This specific baby here is a clone of a plant that is so beautiful. And this was an expensive plant. And so I want to make sure I don't look at her wrong or breathe on her wrong. I want her to thrive, you know? All right, I want to say we've got about a 50-50 mix between healthy root and dead root. We also have an activated growth point, which tells me the plant is trying to save itself. Right here, coming out of the petiole of a lower leaf, is a new shoot. So luckily for me, the plant is not giving up. She's trying her best. And here is the root system. I know that many of these roots are dark and a little bit hard to see. I don't see any new root growth anywhere because usually new roots are defined by a white tip or like a pink tip, depending on the plant. So the roots that it has, it's had for a while. Some of them are dying and some of them are okay. This one, let me see if I can turn it to show you. This one here was completely severed at some point and is just hanging on by a thread. So we are right in our assumption that the roots were not happy. I'll be removing every root that is suspect. We're feeling for roots that are soft and mushy, or roots that feel empty. Anthurium can often have very tuberous roots, but inside every root is like a root hair. And when your root feels like there's nothing inside it but that skinny little hair, that means the root's dead. It will probably break off with a gentle tug. There are other and better videos out there on dealing with root rot if you have an active problem. Thankfully, on the 2 plants we've looked at so far, I don't believe the problem is ongoing. I think it was a problem that occurred and resolved on its own, but the plant has not yet bounced back. Does that make sense? Active root rot is generally defined by black, foul smelling, very mushy root. It is very unpleasant to deal with, but if it happens to you, just know it is a part of the hobby and it happens to everybody. It is nothing to be ashamed of. It's just an opportunity to learn a little bit more about your plant care. Here's what we've got left. Definitely more roots than the Delta Force, but unfortunately, about 50% of the root system on this plant was dead, as I suspected. Unlike the Delta Force, I can't really say that it was overwatering or excess moisture. I really don't know. I don't know this plant well enough. She's very mysterious to me. I haven't figured her out quite yet. And with the Delta Force, I feel confident the roots got too much water. With these, I don't know. Part of me wonders if it got too dry. We're not sure. We're gonna proceed with caution and see if I can get her to fit in this smaller cup. Our one viable long root is a little bit too tall for the cup, but if I just give it a gentle nudge, I think I can safely bend it like this, and we can move forward. Something worth mentioning, I just discussed with our last plant, then when you get a new leaf, you'll get a new root. Here's an example of no new roots have come out yet from the base of this new leaf, but I anticipate that they will. So something you can do, and I might get comments for this. Let me get it close enough. This entire sheath right here is just kind of left over from when this particular leaf was in caterpillar or growth point or whatever, but it might be in the way of any new roots coming out of this new one. So I'm actually gonna cut away some of that old sheath, even though it's not dead. This isn't a case of like dry and crispiness that's fun to peel off. This is actually still living tissue, but it's really doesn't need to be there, and I think it could get in the way of some new roots. So I'll very gingerly just make a small snip and then tear. And now you can see in the exact same spot, this has more room, and maybe some of her new roots will come out from there. Doing the same on the other side, very carefully, because there's actually a tiny little caterpillar in there, which is always so surprising to me when you have a plant that's this small. Like, this is not a mature anthurium by any means, but she's in caterpillar. Oh. And now, without snipping at all, I'm just gonna use the tool of my fingernail. I'm going to wedge my nail here around the petiolar sheath of the most recent one, this one, just again to create a little bit more exposure at the base of my emerging leaf so that new roots could hopefully not be obstructed by that old petiolar sheath. So now let me hold this up really close. All I've removed is stuff like this, and hopefully new roots, when they come, will get immediate contact with some substrate perhaps that'll encourage more root growth as well. There's really no telling. I'm not saying that this is a tried and true method. This is what has come to me in the moment. On the same kind of note though, I'm wondering if anybody's ever done like plant surgery. It is highly unrecommended. I'm not saying you should. I'm wondering if you have tried it anyways, because I will be honest, there have been plants where it really seems like there's a new leaf that is trying its best to emerge, but it's stuck in cataphyll. And I gotta say, guys, I've done a lot of plant surgeries in that specific scenario and did not lose the plant or the emergent leaf, but actually I feel like I did free it. So I'm wondering if anybody else has done that, or if anybody else has wished they knew how, because I've honestly been considering the next time it happens and the next time I feel that intrusive voice telling me to do plant surgery, I might film it and just show you guys what I'm doing that I'm not supposed to be doing. I know they always say it's best just to leave it, but sometimes, let's hear it in the comments. Has it happened to you? You did what you were told, you left it alone, and the leaf really did get stuck in that cataphyll and couldn't come out, and you got a lower growth point activated instead. Happened to me several times. So plant surgery, could it be a necessary evil? So I'm kind of gently piling the substrate up so that again, I can hopefully have direct contact if any new root does start to break out. I want it to have direct contact with the substrate. At the same time, I kind of want to leave that little growth point down there. I want to leave that exposed. Remember I said I found lower down on the plant a growth point had activated. It is probably going to be way too dark for you to see, so that if things don't go well up here at the top and the plant decides to continue pushing energy to this lower growth point, it won't be obstructed by the substrate. And the last thing in urgent care today, you've seen it recently. This is my Anthurium bessier true form. And I told it to you then, and I'll say it again now. I can't figure out this plant. I'm not ashamed of saying that. We do have this leaf, which is really pretty. And it is a clumping form Anthurium. And honestly, I feel like I see places where new leaves were trying to come out of somewhere. And it's like a plant surgery instance. They seem caught, they look caught, I don't know. But the problem today I'm addressing is that once again, algae growth has caused this to be way too dark for me to see, that I'm just gonna do a simple repot from one substrate to the same substrate, probably same cup. I don't expect to find root rot on this specific instance. I just want to be able to see the roots better moving forward. So interesting find, a perfectly healthy root system was just kind of, honestly, this is in the shape of a cup. So I can only suspect that this is what the plant had the last time it was repotted, and it just never grew into its new cup. I did remove, there was this. What is this? This was another piece of bessier true form that I chose to pot up together with this one. And it is dead, but here's a great example of root rot. The chunk is 100% dead, so this doesn't hurt. It's roots. So this doesn't hurt my feelings at all, but it's a great example of what I mean by like the stringiness. Very stringy. I can just pull it right off.
Oh, scared it.
This is what dead root looks like. One of the things I don't really love about bessier true form clumping version is that you may get a beautiful healthy leaf, but you're not necessarily gonna get your next leaf from this one's petiole. In fact, this one gave me a super micro flower instead. And so when I look at this really ill-defined and confusing chunk, I don't know where the next growth is gonna come from. That's something I don't really like about this specific version of Bessier. I might save up for the non-clumping form. It is a little bit more expensive. As you can see, both of my children are down here now, so we're gonna wrap this up quickly. Here's an example of a leaf that I am ready to remove. I think whatever nutrients were in here, I'm pretty sure that it has gotten all the nutrients it will from this leaf. And proof of that is that it snapped off with no problem. Now, actually, instead of putting it into the same size cup, since my root mass is considerably stouter, I think we'll go for this cup just to give it a little extra room to grow, but not an overwhelming amount of space. And she is all repotted. It is bedtime for the two little ones. Thank you guys for coming to my super random and impromptu how to deal with Anthurium that are not looking happy. I hope it was helpful for you. Obviously, I did not address every possible scenario, so feel free to ask in the comments because I can try to answer it if I know the answer. But if I don't know the answer, there's a lot of people who may have the answer for you. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Spoiler alert, it might have to do with the greenhouse because hint, hint, we've started on the concrete. So the next video you get may be the greenhouse video, just depending on the pace of things. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.